All right. I need to make sure everything's good. I believe so, though. All right. I need to make sure everything. All right. I don't know if I hear you or not, but we're just going to go on. All right. What's up, everybody? This is your boy, Austin Fote, and we are talking about some week 0 ball for college and fantasy football. I am here with the man, the myth, the fish, Mr. Manfish. What's going on, fishy boy?
Yo, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on again, bro. Should be a fun one.
I mean, it better be a fun one because we're probably going to have a lot of there and back about some of this garbage. But first off, I always like to start off the show with, if you guys haven't already, like it up. If you haven't already, share it out. Definitely try to get this going. This is going to be every Monday. Preferably, it's going to be before the games on Mondays. So we'll figure out a better timing for this. But as of right now, we're going to start off with some things that have happened in the NFL recently. I just seen this like an hour ago, so I actually don't even know if I have an opinion yet. But what do you think about Jonathan Taylor looking for trades now? Like, he's available to actually seek out trades.
Yeah, I mean, what the owner said he's not going anywhere like a couple weeks ago, and now they're saying he's going somewhere. I've been hearing rumors of the Chiefs a lot. If he goes to the Chiefs, dude, I don't know how I'm gonna feel. Like, good for him. I love the move for him. Awesome. But fuck us for being Detroit Lions fans, because that's going to be one hell of a game. And we're going. I just. That's going to be a bad day for Lions fans on that. I think it does get traded to the Chiefs before Week 1.
Honestly, at this point, I don't even know where the hell he goes. I honestly don't even think he's gonna leave.
Really?
I doubt he's gonna leave the Colts. I mean, if he does, that's good for him. Get out of there. But I mean, if I was him, I'd probably want to stick around because the team's gonna start rebuilding soon, and he's not that old yet. So I mean, he's not ring chasing. Well, I mean, everyone ring chases. Let's be honest, but like, he's not a vet where he needs that now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's in his junior year, and so I mean, he's got time to figure things out. Does he want to go through that rebuild? I don't know. I'm not Jonathan Taylor, or does he want to go join the Chiefs? I don't know how they do it. Maybe cut Chris Jones. I don't know, but I mean, it's kind of crazy, but we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not. I don't think he's gonna leave, but hey, Ethan, message in there if you can hear Fish as well. I just want to make sure. But Ethan said, "Damn, should I leave the voice chat? I'm in there right now. Should we allow him to jump in here, or do we want him out of there?"
That's up to you, man. It's your pod, so.
Ethan, if you want to talk a little bit, we're probably gonna talk for the next 30 minutes, so you can join in on us if you'd like. But
Right.
oh, there's Ethan. I don't have a button that claps for you, so I'll give you a clap for you right there.
There you go. That's
So,
a virtual clap.
what do you think about this? His name's Bear. I'm just going to refer to him as Bear, not Ethan. What do you think about the Jonathan Taylor situation here?
Dude, I love it for Jonathan Taylor personally. He gets out of a situation that I personally think that doesn't fit him right now. He's one of those elite running backs. He's 24. He had 800 yards, close to 900, and he was injured last year. I would love him to go to the Chiefs or a team that's needy like the Dolphins. If he was on an AFC team, I really think that they could go like on a Super Bowl run with him leading the backfield.
The Real
What about the
Origin,
Bills?
thank you for saying hype, baby. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. You said the Bills you think he'd go to?
Yeah, what
They,
about the Bills?
The Dolphins.
I just don't think they utilize a running back in that Bills. Like, that'd be, I don't know. I feel like that'd be a waste of Taylor's.
I feel like they could like change up the offense a bit and maybe run some more RPO with I mean, Josh Allen's like, he's not slow. Like, he's a good mobile quarterback. Like,
No, he is.
really good actually.
I just don't think they utilize that
So,
running
like,
back as much. That's the point I'm making. Like, he's like the
Yeah.
running back there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Dolphins could be interesting too. I mean, they actually need something back there. Is it Mostert that's still the starter there?
Yeah, Mostert.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, fuck, dude. The Bears have money too. Why not the Bears?
I feel like they're set already with who they got.
I mean, we could throw a
Why?
package.
I mean, I guess they have Herbert, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I think they want to give Herbert a chance, but if they were, there's been some rumors that maybe we could trade Foreman. I know we just signed him, but it's been a possibility. It's been talked about of trading.
That'd be
Foreman,
quick.
and maybe
That'd be a quick
Shit,
one.
I'd hop all over that. I mean, for JT, dude. Fuck.
All right, so
And you have the cap.
all right, so I think we're all agreeing here that there's a possibility of this man moving around. But let's go to Josh Jacobs because this is probably my favorite player of last year. I recently feel like I just seen that he said that there was something said about week 1 that he's gonna be there, but he's not playing at all during this preseason. What do you guys think about Jacobs holding out?
For me personally, I say draft a new running back. I'm all for that. Like, these running backs don't really need to be getting paid all this crazy money. I know, call me a piece of shit, whatever. Do whatever the fuck you want to call me. So I think he's dumb to hold out. Like, you're still getting paid millions and millions of dollars, bro. Like, just run the football. That's all you gotta do.
Sure.
If you want to go to a better team, go to a better team. Take take a contract around the same size, whatever, to go chase a ring. Like, dude, you got your bag. You're set for life, bro. Like, I don't know. I think it's stupid what these running backs are doing, but that's just me.
I think he's all cap, honestly. I think he's going to play this season. I don't like that he's not around the team because I already know Devontae Adams is pissed about it. I'm assuming there's more people that are, but Adams doesn't care what he says, so that's going to get publicized no matter what. But I don't know. I have a feeling that Jacobs is kind of capping. He probably should make more, but, I mean, he only had one amazing season, and I mean, I get why he wants out. I mean, the team's not that good, so, and it's not going to be good for a minute, I feel like. So, I mean, I see why he's doing all this, but I don't want to see him ruin his career if he has to sit out a whole year. That's just going to burn him.
For sure.
Barry, got any thoughts on Jacobs?
Yeah, I feel like he should just go ahead and pony up and play. I mean, you're not gonna get the money that you want. You guys, they settled on an agreement with the NFL, CBA, and everything like that. So I feel like you should honor your contract. So if he keeps continuing to get taxed, it's gonna suck. But there's not much you can do about that. If I'm the Raiders, though, I would look into trading him, and I would see what what would be on the market. Because I do think this Raiders team needs to blow things up if things immediately start going south at the beginning of the season, or if Jimmy G gets hurt. I think you need to consider blowing it up. Trade Adams, see what you can get for him. Trade Jacobs, trade Max Crosby, see what you can get out of value for those players.
I could see him being a
Yeah.
season type trade. I could see them going through the season and going, all right, Jacobs, we'll give you what you want. Get him out of there. Try to get something out of it.
I'm going to agree with Bear there. This team is in just the beginning phases of a rebuild, dude. I mean, it's the oldest average team age in the NFL. They just need to get rid of these big players, get these picks they can get for them, and then just get a good start in this rebuild. I agree with Bear.
Yeah, you could get a lot of picks from Max Crosby. You could
Right.
probably get 2 first-round picks straight up just for Crosby. I don't agree with the Jonathan Taylor or Josh Jacobs if he got traded like a CMC package. I don't think they're on his level of talent, but I do think if you got like a couple of picks for them, then I would go ahead and trade them. Obviously, Adams would come into first, but I would go ahead and do it. You could get 3-4 firsts out of possibly just 2-3 players.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are good takes there. So, do you guys got any other notable NFL conversations you want to bring up before we head into the beef of our discussions? Or
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard an update that Patriots player, like, is he good, bro? Like,
Yeah, they said that he was fine, had all movement in his extremities and everything.
cool.
and what we're
Yeah,
bringing up
yeah.
is the injury from preseason. It was in the fourth quarter. One of the players, I'm slipping his name, but he basically got cracked and lights out. He had to get stretchered off, and they basically canceled the game. So it is good to hear that he is back and coming back to his senses, moving. That's good to hear. Definitely didn't want another I don't want to say Hamlin incident, but that's pretty much the only way people understand what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
Right.
I do have one other thing. The Nick Bosa situation. He still hasn't gotten a contract. He hasn't showed up at all to camp, and
oh wow,
there's been stuff going on saying that he possibly might not play for Week 1. So
Oh
it's
my
getting kind of
God.
scary. We're only 2 weeks away from football now, and he still does not have a contract, hasn't showed up or anything. So it's getting me kind of concerned that he might actually get traded. Like I'm getting a Khalil Mack type vibe when he got traded to the Bears. There's nothing going on.
What does a trade for Bosa look like? 3 first?
Probably, yeah. Unless if you swap them at edge.
yeah, that would definitely be an interesting one with Nick Bosa because he's been a very dominant athlete. I would hate to see him leave, but yeah, I mean that's another money guy, a chaser guy right there. He wants his contract, and nobody's gonna stop these guys if they want something. They're gonna get it, and I mean honestly, Nick Bosa is good enough to pay him at this point, but that team probably has a bust in their damn cap space at the moment with how much talent they got on that team.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, let's move on to college football week 0. We're going to fly through this because there's like literally 8 games. But was I right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Yeah, 7. My bad. I didn't go to college for math, so there is 7 games. I mean, not a lot to talk about for this week 0 matchups. I'll talk to Bear about this. What games are you kind of looking forward to seeing this weekend, or are you just excited for football in general?
I'm just excited for football in general, but I mean USC and San Jose State should be a decent game. That's a game I'm gonna watch personally.
Right, and I'll throw the same question at you, Fish. Are you just excited for ball, or are you like kind of excited to kind of maybe dip your feet into college football this season? Like, what are you kind of anticipating here?
I definitely am going to be watching the majority of college football this season. I just don't know enough right now to tell you. Like, obviously, like this Notre Dame Navy game should be a blowout, but I think it'll be the closest one of like the top 25 teams. That
Sure,
makes sense.
sure. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, just taking a look at the teams that are playing, we got definitely blowout potential in most of them. Games I probably won't even be anticipating. UTEP and Jacksonville State, not very exciting to me. I'll probably have it on just till that UMass, New Mexico, or that Ohio and San Diego State game comes on. Notre Dame and Navy is 100% going to be on my TV at 2:30 p.m. I am very excited to watch Notre Dame and the new quarterback they got there. Sam Hartman. We're going to witness what he can bring to the table there. They probably obviously aren't going against the best of defenses, but it's going to be at least nice to see how he's molded into that situation. We got Ohio and San Diego State's probably one of my favorite ones because I believe that's going to be one of the closest matches. I actually think Ohio has potential to upset as they upsetted their first game last year. The problem is San Diego State's a pretty positive program there, so it's going to be a pretty good game in general. I could see Ohio coming up, but definitely San Diego State's probably going to lead that game most of the game, and I would anticipate a win, but you never know in college football, man.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching the Notre Dame game because I like Clemson and they're one of our biggest rivals. So I'll watch that for looks.
Then we got our later day games: USC, San Jose State, and Florida.
I'm watching that game.
Yeah, absolutely. USC and San Jose State are definitely, the matchup's obviously not the best, but we will all be watching.
I love Caleb Williams. He's a once in a generation type prospect, and he's a guy that you can't miss out on. For me personally, anyway.
Correct. All right. Do we have any other insight on this first week 0 quotations football games?
Wait, who are we talking about?
Do we have another person in the chat?
I was so right about.
Okay, we're live on YouTube, so this heads up.
All right, well, Akari has entered the chat. I'll give him a clap because I don't have my thing downloaded yet.
Damn.
Kari jumped in at the right time because we're about to start talking about fantasy football rankings. So I think how we're going to do this, and I'm going to give people time limits because I know how some people can get into talking about certain players. How we're going to do this is I'm going to go by positions. We're going to go by tiers. And what I want to talk about mostly is what we expect certain players to do. I'm not going to touch on everybody, but I am going to bring up tiers, and I want to hear what everyone's opinions are on certain athletes. So I think that's how we're going to do it. I'm not going to spend 2 hours on fantasy football, I promise. But we the reason for this is to kind of give the opinions of what I'm kind of looking at and to hear some insight on what everyone believes for these certain players. I mean, right off the bat, we're going to start off with tier 1 quarterbacks. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. We'll move down the list. We got 3 quarterbacks on this tier 1. We have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. I'm just going to put this out there right now. You probably are fine with any of the tier 1 players in any freaking position. So probably won't be a lot of discussion here. Although I really still like my Patrick Mahomes, and I really am looking forward to seeing if Jalen Hurts can reciprocate what he just did last year versus this year. I want to move the panel over to Fish first. What are you looking at with these tier 1 guys? Is there any one of these 3 that you're looking at going, shit, I'm going to get this guy over this guy? Or is there anything that you're looking at here?
So yeah, you're pretty spot on with them. Obviously, I don't know what Hurts is gonna do. We'll see. I don't know if it's a 1-year wonder or not. But I do want to add one person to this tier 1, in my opinion, at least. It might be like a sleeper tier 1 for me, and I feel like I'm gonna throw up saying it, but I think Justin Fields might be that tier 1 this year. Because if he can actually learn how to throw the ball, like if he actually is good now this year throwing the ball, he should be up there with those top 3 guys easily.
All right.
That's my take.
So, Bear, let's try to stay on topic of the players in each tier, though. Are you looking at these 3 and going, thinking anything? Any thoughts on these top 3 guys here in this tier 1?
Honestly, in my opinion, I'm a little bit worried about Hurts and Josh Allen because I'm worried because recently, I know Diggs just deconfirmed it, but I feel like there's a lot of drama going on there. Their run game, I'm not sold on. I'm not sold on Gabe Davis, and I think because Allen turns the ball over a lot, so I feel like he's gonna have to make it up with some rushing touchdowns, which I think will be fine. And then obviously it hurts, like Manfish said, you're gonna have to have more than 22 passing touchdowns for me to consider you tier 1. Like he said, I would rather be putting Joe Burrow in his spot for safety reasons. Like I'm more comfortable with that, and yeah, that or Fields, fantasy wise only.
Kari, do you got any input here?
I mean, I have a sleeper guy if he can stay healthy, who I think could easily be the number guy, and that's Lamar Jackson.
All right, so to end off the tier 1, as everyone else kind of just explained, my personal opinions, Patrick Mahomes, probably if you can snag this guy at an early part of the draft, you better already have envisioned what you're going to do later in the draft, because what I've seen people fail to do is they pick their number 1 quarterback in the first 2 rounds and they just can't figure out how to mold the rest of their team. So that is my only insight with these tier 1 guys. If you're reaching a little bit, figure out what you're doing later on. Make sure you have a plan. Because what I like to do with my quarterbacks is kind of wait until the tier 2, tier 3 guys start to come up and down, which is where we're leading to next, is our tier 2 guys. Now, I actually like a few of these guys a little more than Hurts and Allen. The only reason why I see them being higher than these tier 2 guys in general is because of their running ability. But again, some of these tier 2 guys could actually match, if not do better, than some of these tier 1 guys. Before I give all my personal opinions, I want to throw the panel around again. Fish, what are you looking at this tier 2? Do you like any of these guys more? Do you like any of these guys less? What are you kind of looking at when you're drafting with these guys?
I don't know what the tier 2 guys are.
That's right, you're driving. It's Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, yeah, that sounds. Once again, 5 other great quarterbacks that arguably could be tier 1. So like I said, Fields, Lamar, Burrow, I could see them being tier 1. But besides that, like these are really solid quarterbacks for your fantasy team. I mean, you probably these guys will probably fall to like the 5th, 6th round. That's where I'm probably gonna take one of these guys, me personally, in all my leagues, like a T Law or something, and like the 5th or 6th. So yeah, I mean, this tier 2 solid, and I mostly agree with it.
Bear, any thoughts?
Yeah, I like this list personally more than I do the tier 1 quarterbacks for just value wise. Like Manfish said, take a 5th and 6th. Maybe some slip down into the 7th, like a Lawrence. I've seen that happen. I love this list, honestly, but I do feel like Lamar and Fields with their rushing ability, yards, and touchdown ball throwing the ball, I think that uppens their value. It's just their health-wise, and then obviously Fields' throwing ability. But I will say I'm surprised one quarterback isn't in here. I don't know why Aaron Rodgers is so low. This guy has MVP potential on the Jets. I really do feel like this guy should be in tier 2. He's getting slept on.
Kari, you got any thoughts here?
I mean, mostly I agree with everything. I guess the one thing I would say is I definitely have Justin Fields right there at the top of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If not, like at the very end of tier 1.
Absolutely. So when I look at this tier 2 list, when I draft, this is kind of the range I like to kind of look at. I never go for the top 5 type quarterbacks. So being realistic here, I probably won't get anyone other than Lawrence because I can already tell that most of these guys are going to go before I like to take a quarterback. I do think Herbert would be a little bit of a reach in that front 5. I've had Herbert before in fantasy, and he did not do as well as I would like, and I don't think it's going to be the same this year. Most of my teams I had last year included Geno Smith and Fields, which I got off the waiver wire. So I am telling you, there is going to always be someone that you can grab. So in my personal opinion, it is always best to wait a minute before getting a quarterback, unless your team's already looking stellar by around 4 or 5. If I was to reach for any of these guys, I would probably take Fields or Burrow. Those would probably be my 2 that I would be reaching at. And Trevor Lawrence has some very, very good potential this season. I will put that out there. So that's probably where I'm looking at for tier 2. And let's jump into tier 3, which is probably the tier I'm 95% going to be drafting out of. And I'll give you my opinion on some guys that I'm probably going to be taking later in my draft. For Fish's reference sake, tier 3 consists of Watson, Prescott, Tua, Jones, Cousins, Smith, Richardson, Rodgers, and Goff. I'll throw Fish out there first. Do any of those names ring a bell for you when you look at fantasy? Do you want any of these guys?
Only thing I gotta say about it, and it could just be me drinking the blue Kool-Aid, me being biased, but I think Goff should be either at the top of tier 3 or at the bottom of tier 2, simply because of the offense. I mean, there was a top 5 offense last year. The offense only got better. I think it's going to be another top 5 again. I think he's going to produce even more touchdowns than he did last year. So I think he'd be pretty, mid to solid for fantasy-wise this year. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much the typical guys you'll see. Like, it's just the guys you play, you draft later on. Maybe your backups, possibly. Who knows? Depends on how your draft goes.
Bear, you got any input?
Yeah, this tier has a lot of risk. Like Tua, obviously injury wise. You have Watson, who's rusty. and then you have Anthony Richardson, which I don't get why he's that high to begin with, especially with Jonathan Taylor requesting a trade and this like what he produces. I feel like that's a risk too. So for me personally, I'm not going to be looking at these types of quarterbacks. The only quarterback that stands out to me is, oh wow, that's a great value, which I've been doing, is taking Aaron Rodgers. Again, I'm a huge Rodgers guy. Better system, better weapons, better defense, better head coach. He's got everything that he needs to get back to that MVP form and take this team far and produce very well in fantasy points as well. Get back up to that top end status. Goff, with Manfish, I agree, could end up being a high tier 3 or high tier 3, bottom of tier 2, but it scares me because sometimes his reliability as well, like 2021, I know he's hurt, but there are years where he's on and off. And especially that O-line, he needs a good O-line to succeed. So if you have a couple injuries up front, like I feel like that could hinder his touchdowns to interceptions ratio and his passing percentage because he's bad under pressure.
That's some excellent points there. I like that. Akari, you got any input you want to put in here?
Now, me personally, I'm surprised no one said this, but the biggest name that stands out to me, and I'm surprised again no one said it, was Kirk Cousins. The safest floor of any fantasy quarterback I've ever seen.
I'm glad you said that.
He will consistently give you, at the bare minimum, top 10 numbers at the very end of top 10.
I'm glad you said that because with my perspective of this tier 3, I 100% agree with the Kirk Cousins analogy, and I also 100% agree with the high risk analogy that both these guys have just brought out. When I look at this tier, I obviously don't recommend most of these guys as your starter in fantasy. Although, if you draft somewhat risky and you're similar to how I draft, which is receiver heavy, running back next, and then my tight end or quarterback, I suggest you guys taking a look at the following guys because they will give you your points that you want and then also might surprise you certain weeks, and that is Kirk Cousins, Rodgers, Tua if he can stay healthy, Prescott, and Goff. Mostly everyone else I'm probably staying away from. And the one name in this tier that really is going to surprise me if he goes off this season is Anthony Richardson. It will most likely be due to his ability to run. I doubt he will be a top 15 this season. I could see it next season probably being a top 10, but I don't know. That's probably one guy that I'm not touching. But for the most part, I could see myself having a few of these guys as my starter if I don't get Herbert or Lawrence a little bit later in the draft. To conclude with this list, I'm not going to go through all the rest of these tiers because it's kind of pointless. But Manfish, with anyone who we haven't talked about, is there a fantasy name that you would consider drafting later or just for some weird-ass reason you'd pick as your starter?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how the first half of the season goes, I am following a lot on Brock Purdy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, what he did last year was spectacular. If he can repeat it or if he's even that good this next year with that team, you can expect pretty good numbers with him fantasy-wise.
Absolutely. Bear, do you have any input on players you might be drafting as a backup potential to rise?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at. I like C.J. Stroud. I do think this Texans team added a lot of talent that's not being appreciated. I'm also looking at maybe a Kenny Pickett. This Steelers team got significantly better. He's looked fantastic in the preseason. I think this guy's going to go off and potentially get the Steelers in the playoffs.
I didn't even think about Kenny. That's a good one.
And Akara, do you got any input on this topic?
Honestly, along the same lines as Bayer here, I would probably take Bryce Young. I feel he has the most potential in this class aside from Richardson. And his team around him offensively really isn't all that bad.
Very good, very good. If we're looking at my perspective, obviously I'm not really looking at any of the guys to start on my team, but what we're looking at here is for guys that I would like as my quarterback's backup or potential to move up this season. There's only a few names I'm really even considering. I like to draft my quarterbacks very, very late if we're in regards to my backup. So players that I could see myself taking at this point could be like Fish said, a Brock Purdy, like these two both said, Kenny Pickett, or I also like Derek Carr. I think there could be a lot of potential with this guy. I do want to point out that I'm probably the biggest hater of Derek Carr that there is out there, but I do also want to not blindly throw out there that he has some great weapons and he has a great spot that he's in. So that does go noticed. For the rest of these guys, I'm kind of just going to let them hit the free agency and see what happens. I did that with Justin Fields, and surprisingly, I was able to scoop him up in 3 of my 6 leagues that all went to the finals, or at least semis. So if you can keep your eyes open for that one quarterback, it could be something like a Sam Howell. It could be something like Baker Mayfield's backup, Kyle Trask. There's a few guys out there that are extremely low right now that if they start and they get hot, you could see them kind of blossoming. But do not take that approach. I definitely think you should get a backup. And if you see one of them going off, definitely drop your backup for one of them. But that's pretty much quarterbacks for you. Not a lot to report on with this. You should be safe with any of these tier 2, top tier 3 guys. We're going to hit the running backs now, which is probably the second highest probability to get screwed on if you're not careful. I like to think, well, I'll put it like this. I used to think having a strong running back core was what you needed, so I would draft them very early, but I think fantasy football is changing a little bit to the point where we need to start looking at stronger receivers early. So we are going to take a look at these tiers. I'm not going to go through all the tiers. We might hit tier 4 and just combine all the rest. But for tier 1, I'm sure most of us have the same opinions. Again, you can't go wrong with any tier 1 guys. McCaffrey, Eckler, Barkley, Robinson, or Bijan Robinson, my bad, and Tony Pollard. Fish, any thoughts on these guys? Is there a guy that, if you're first pick that you're getting, or you going receiver, what are you thinking about when you see these guys for your team?
So in terms of running backs, I don't get the whole Bijan thing. I really don't. I wouldn't. He's not tier 1 for me. I mean, if he is for you, good and all. And then also, the sleep on Nick Chubb is insane. I think he's a tier 1, and I think he should be in there. But me personally, I don't go running backs first. I go wide receiver. So realistically, I probably won't get any of these guys anyways.
I like the honesty because I also don't usually get any of these guys in my team unless I'm literally the 3rd pick or something. But Bear, do you have any insight on your tier 1 guys here?
Honestly, Manfish hit it on the head. I'm not a Bijan guy. I would not put him in tier 1. I'd have him in tier 2. I'd swap him and Nick Chubb. And honestly, I'm swapping Tony Pollard for Derrick Henry. He's coming off a bad ankle injury. I believe he broke his leg. So I'd put Derrick Henry and I would put Nick Chubb in there, and I'd swap out Bijan and Tony Pollard and put them in tier 1.
Kari?
I mean, I'm of the opposite opinion here. I think Bijan is easily tier 1. After seeing the last 2 years what Breece Hall could have been and how Najee finished top 3 his rookie year, it's not far-fetched to say that Bijan, being that much more talented than both of them, could easily finish RB 3 or 4 or higher. And for a running back, I would take, if I know he's going to be healthy, Christian McCaffrey easily, because if he's healthy, he's just not running back 1. There's just no question.
Absolutely. So, just for my tidbit here, these tier 1 guys, in my absolute opinion, I would not be taking them with pick 1 or pick 2. I would take, obviously, the top 2 receivers that we'll go over once we're in that category. These guys are very situational with how you pick fantasy. There's certain players I'd pick at certain spots. I would not be taking McCaffrey at the 2nd pick, but I would probably consider it if I was a 3rd pick. If I'm a 5th pick and he falls to that, then yes as well. But for a lot of these guys, I'm probably not getting them unless I'm in the perfect spot to get them. The only guy I actually don't really care for is Tony Pollard. Everyone here knows that I'm just not the biggest Pollard guy, fan. I just need more. I need to see a full season for me to start picking him as my first season. And honestly, the same thing goes for Bijan Robinson. But the fact that the NFL has kind of moved on with the theory of, oh, if he's insanely healthy and insanely young, we'll ride him till he dies out. I think this is like that type of player right there. So I could see the risk if you're in that, what would I consider, like an 8th pick. If he's still sitting there, I'd probably take him. But other than that, you can't really go wrong with the rest of these guys. Eckler and Barkley will be very, very safe tier 1 guys unless Barkley is labeled injury prone, which he kind of is considered injury prone. So, but I do think they're both safe for this season. Trey, evening gents, finished my first last night. Care to grade the squad? Oh, he's drafted. I'll take a look at that later, Trey. I don't know where that is. But tier 2, anyone who played fantasy with me knows that I tend to look at the running backs a little earlier, but in this past year I've started looking a little later. We have Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson. Funny enough, I've probably had every single one of these players on one of my teams last year because either they were very low or they were extremely higher. So I want to hear from Manfish what you think about these guys, this tier. Anyone that you're trying to get, anyone you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, so this tier is, I mean, like I said, Chubb thinks me up. But Stevenson here is also really good. I love Stevenson. And I think if Josh Jacobs was not holding out, he'd be here as well, like top tier 1 or top tier 2. But other than that, I mean, you can't really go wrong with these guys as well. These the guys I'll probably be looking at because these guys that would be falling to me, maybe, hopefully. So we'll see how it pans out. But yeah, it depends depends the draft, the type of drafter you are. These are the guys you should be looking at.
Bear, what you like?
Hmm?
What are you liking in this tier?
I like you said, I like Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. If I had the option, I would switch Bijan and I would swap Pollard. I don't like either of them there. I like the flipperoo. Jonathan Taylor, depending on where he gets traded, if he gets traded to the Chiefs, I like that a lot better than I do the Colts. Josh Jacobs, I like there as well. That's probably a guy I'll be looking to draft, is Jacobs. Stevenson, I'm not so high on anymore after a draft or they signed Ezekiel Elliott. That really just, I mean, you saw with Pollard, it was taking his carries away, and Zeke I don't know why they signed him. They should have just kept Stevenson as a workhorse. So, in my opinion, I'm staying away from Stevenson.
Akari, got any thoughts on these guys?
I agree with Bear. I'm not a big Stevenson fan. Personally, I would probably drop him down to tier 3 just because of that committee. But a guy I don't know if it was said already is Breece Hall. I think he should be up here.
So just my so Trey put in the chat for us to rate his squad. So ears up. I'm gonna list off his team, and I want to hear everyone's ratings. So he's got Lamar, he's got Jamar Chase and Garrett, he's got Ramondre and Javante, he's got Waddle in his flex, and he's got Evan Ingram as his tight end. And some of his bench guys are James Cook, Rashad White, Michael Pittman, Sky Moore, Rashad Penny, and Elijah Moore. What are we thinking?
It's not terrible. I just don't like the risk of Lamar. The RB2 is not really all that crazy either. I'm not a big fan of him. I'd give it like, I don't know, 7.5. If Lamar does good, 9. If he doesn't, 7.
Any other thoughts?
This is hard, bro. Like, I don't be mean on the guy, but like, if we're gonna throw it at A through F, I would get a C-. There's a lot of boomer bust guys like Lamar, injury prone. Obviously, you have Ramondre, who has Ezekiel Elliott now in a committee running back room. You have Javonte Williams, who's coming off ACL, and you typically don't see those guys come back right away off ACL and tear stuff up. Ingram, is it a one-year wonder? I don't know. And then his bench, again, has a lot of boomer bust guys. James Cook, Rashad White. Got Michael Pittman with Anthony Richardson as a backup quarterback. Sky Moore, will he take that step? Rashad Penny, again, a committee by running back room. I like Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is a good pick.
He's good. He has good receivers overall. Good receivers.
Yeah, so, Akar, did you have any input before I gave mine?
Solid 6.5 out of 10. I feel the risk kind of outweighs the floor there, where week to week you guys have guys that are more likely to bust than boom, honestly, sometimes. So I'm just not a fan.
So, just my small analysis. I can kind of tell you obviously went receiver. That's actually something I would do, so I really like how you did that. I'm going to assume you took Ramondre and then Lamar. I'm curious to see what you would have had sitting there for Ramondre. I'm assuming most of the tier 1 and 2 guys were gone at that point, but it's hard for me to say because I do like Stevenson and Williams. The problem is Williams is coming off an injury where we all know that's insane risk. The guys usually don't come off strong, but Cam Akers didn't come off strong and he kind of came back later in the year. So I could see you kind of looking for a running back a little bit in free agency, which always happens. So that's good case scenario for you. So I like the ability of stacking your receivers, and I like that you have a higher mid tight end because I actually think Daniel Jones really likes, or sorry, not Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence really likes Evan Ingram. God damn, I just thought he was on the Giants for some reason in that sentence. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I give it a 7. There's lots of potential there. It's just they're not at the potential with that running back core at the moment. I really like your receivers, though. I like that a lot. You're not going to have any problem with that. And also, same thing with Fish said about your quarterback. It depends, honestly. Lamar could have one of his better seasons this season, so you're looking good. I definitely like your team. Yeah, it's definitely high ceiling, low floor, but we pick our poison, I support. Thanks, fellas. Yes, sir, Trey. Good luck to your season, man. So, back to our tier list. I won't touch too much on this. We can move along a little bit, but I do like tier 2. I am a big fan of these guys. If you're later in the draft, I'd probably... It depends where you're at with the picks. If a few receivers have already been picked and Nick Chubb's just sitting there and you're like the 12th pick, I'd probably take Chubb and a receiver. But other than that, I'm not too certain this season. I like the theory of receivers heavy, so I'm probably not taking most of these guys, even though I'm a huge fan of like all of these guys except Stevenson right now. So, and everyone knows that I'm a Derrick Henry diehard lover. So, I mean, it's probably going to be really hard for me to pass up on a Derrick Henry. So, you might see me slip in 1 or 2 Derrick Henrys this year. But tier 3 is kind of where I start to look at my running back core. I will give you my hints on who I'm kind of looking at. I want to move on to Fish. I will say the names because I know you're driving. Mixon, Harris, Gibbs, NTN, Jones, and Hall. That is the tier 3 list. What are you thinking about these guys?
Yeah, there's one name here that sticks out for me the most. Well, 2 actually. Obviously Gibbs, bro. I think he's gonna be a fantasy just dominant guy, dude. I think he's gonna be really good in fantasy wise. And then Mixon. I don't like Mixon. I think that rookie they drafted is going to really step up and probably fighting for that starting spot like halfway through the season. So I don't like Mixon, but if you like Mixon, go for it. But yeah, this is pretty solid tier 3, and there's some names in here that could really win you some leagues.
Bear.
There's 3 names I like, 3 names I don't like. So 50-50 on this tier. I don't like Mixon. They brought in a running back to help take away his carries. He's been kind of falling off an injury prone over the years. Najee Harris, not the biggest fan of. Gibbs, I do like the value here. If if you get him right there in that tier 3, that lower end, I like that volume and I like that value where he's at. I don't know if I'd have him as running back 1. So if you're going running back heavy and he's there, and get as your running back 2, that'd be a good value for me personally, because I don't like personally that as a running back 1. But Aaron Jones, I also love. He has that receiving ability. I like having backs that have receiving ability. They also get you rushing while getting receiving touchdowns. That's why I love taking Eckler. Breece Hall, I don't like at all because they signed Dalvin Cook for a reason, and I'm almost positive he's still not 100% ready. That's why they signed Dalvin Cook. I think it's going to take him a little bit to get back into rhythm, and it may not even be till next year that I think he'll be 100% or he'll get the nice touches that he was getting.
I like a lot of that. Akari, any input?
I mean, yeah, I already said like I'm a big fan of Breece Hall. I think he may not start off as hot as he was, but I think by 6-7 he'll get right back to what he was doing, which is no sort of potential top 10 running back numbers. Not saying he will be, but that's what he was putting up at one point. And then I actually, unlike these two, I do like Mixon. I think he still has a big role in this offense that is trying to win now.
All right, so yeah, looking at my tier, the tier 3, and looking at it from my perspective, I sadly will probably get stuck with some of these guys as my RB1 just because I will probably go receiver heavy unless something happens in my draft. I wouldn't shy away from guys like Harris or Jones. I definitely like those two guys. I could see them being my RB1s if they're still available. I would reach a little bit on NTN. I really like him. I just know that they got Tank as Bigsby, and I really liked him in college. So very interested to see what's going to happen with that dynamic. But I don't think they're going to shy away from Travis Etienne just yet. So I could see myself taking them. I might also be in a really bad position and have to take Gibbs as my RB1, and it might scare me a little bit. But the fact that the Lions team is kind of molding around these type of players, I could see it being a positive, or obviously it could shoot me in the neck. And with the Breece Hall comment, I'm very sad actually that Dalvin Cook got signed there because I was insanely hyped about Breece Hall. Sad that he got injured, and it's sad to hear that it's probably not going in his direction at the moment. And if anything, it's probably just a year that the Jets are going, we don't want him to re-injure himself. Let's get this running back for the year and kind of offset it so that he can get back to healthy. So I probably don't expect Breece Hall to be amazing this year, even though I'm like insanely tempted to draft him. I probably stay away unless you're kind of running out of options. So that's kind of my take on these guys. I'm gonna just throw out.
I forgot.
Go for it.
I forgot something. I forgot to mention Etienne. I totally skipped over him. I've said this before in the VC like a couple of nights ago, but this is my guy. Like, if I'm going receiver heavy, tight end, I'm grabbing a quarterback for a running back or anything of that nature, Etienne, I am fine with being my running back 1. This guy, he can receive, he can run the ball. I have the Jags as my number 1 seed this next year. If that's a preview, I just do. I absolutely love Etienne. I think he's the next great running back in this league.
Absolutely. So
that real quick, if I can.
Yeah, go for it.
I personally really don't like Etienne. I think it won't be very long, within a year or two, that Bigsby takes over for him. I think Bigsby is more talented as a downhill runner.
Oh, wow.
And honestly, as a pass catcher, they're not entirely that far off from what I've seen.
Okay. Let's move on to... I'm actually just going to combine the rest of these running backs because we're definitely running out of time. But, Fish, I know you can't really looking at the screen right now, but is there any running backs we haven't really talked about that you would be looking at flex or just longevity-wise?
I feel like I know I keep bringing up the Lions, but I think Monty might be like replacing Jamal Williams last year. I mean, Jamal had 18 touchdowns. He broke Barry Sanders' record. He was Jamal last year was a very dominant fantasy player, like a very, but a boom guy last year. So I think Monty has the possibility of doing that this year once again, or doing and replacing Jamal. So I mean, I might pick him up later on. We'll see what happens.
Barry, got any thoughts?
I like guys like Kenneth Walker. Surprised no one's mentioned that. I love Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
Zach Charbonnet does scare me because you drafted another running back high in the second round. But I think Kenneth Walker is such a good talent that he'll be fine and he'll be the next guy. And then since we're combining it, I like Khalil Herbert. He was better than Monty in that Bears system when he came in, played less games, better yards per carry. He led the NFL in yards per carry actually whenever he was healthy. And obviously you can see that he can receive the ball in the preseason. He got a reception and took it to the house for 56 yards. So he's going to be the bell cow back there. So that's a guy I always take personally.
Kari, any thoughts?
I mean, I personally have no issue drafting Miles Sanders. He's got a decent floor, not as high of a ceiling as everyone else. But if you need that running back 3 or 4 to fill out your room, take him in a heartbeat.
I do like that thought because how I draft, a lot of these tier 2 guys are probably going to be my RB2s and 3s. I like to do back-to-back around this time in the draft. You will most likely see players like Pierce, Sanders, Madison, or Akers on my team. They will probably be around still. I like to look at the free agency a little bit during the season, or I like to look deep into my draft for guys that could potentially fit into my team. Guys I like are Montgomery, Pacheco, Herbert, Robinson, and where is he at? Hold on. Is he really down here? I don't even see him. Give me one sec. Oh, Tyjae Spears. Those are guys that I kind of like. Spears is definitely down here. I'm not grouping him in with the draft him era where I'm talking about, but that's an example of someone I'm probably going to be keep my eye on near the end of my draft, or probably just free agency, honestly. But for the list of few guys that I just mentioned, and Dalvin Cook now, can't forget him. Those are definitely guys I'm probably looking at as RB3s, or just guys I'm definitely keeping my eyes on. There's definitely depth just to cover over most of the running backs. There is depth that's usually not there in the RB2-3 spot. So don't be shy about drafting a little heavier on the receivers or taking that early running back and then jumping around. I can mostly tell you if you're in a 10 or 12 man league, you will find an RB2 that's possibly safe. So that's probably my running back scenario right there. Moving along. This is going to be hard to fly through, but receivers are the hot commodity in fantasy football right now. Let's just see how this one goes, because tier 1 we got it's kind of interesting to me, but we got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, and Tyreek Hill. Again, tier 1s usually can't go wrong with, but Fish, do you have any input on any of these guys?
No, that's pretty much like the solid tier 1. I don't think I'd move anyone or add anyone.
Bear.
This receiver 1 tier, I like Justin Jefferson. I always draft him. I like Jamar Chase. I'm not a fan of Cooper Kupp being here. I would rather have a guy like a CeeDee Lamb here, or Devontae Adams, actually. Wow, he is a lot lower than I thought. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Cooper Kupp. He's coming off an injury-riddled season in camp. He's had a couple hiccups here and there with injury. But other than that, I love this tier. I love Hill, I love Chase, and I love Jefferson.
Kari?
I kind of agree with everything that's been said. I think I feel like number one receiver, it's a debate between Chase and Jefferson. I mean, I forget Jefferson's the safer bet, but I feel like Jamar Chase really has a good shot at finishing as wide receiver one this year.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. Looking at the tier ones, not going to say too much input on this, but if you're not first or second pick, you're not getting Jefferson or Chase. Sorry. If you are luckily in a league where someone takes McCaffrey at 2 and you're blessed with one of those 2 at 3, you're probably stealing. So Cooper and Hill, it's a very depends where type picks for me. This is why I like to be later in my drafts, because guys like the tier 2s kind of filter my 1 and 2 spots. But if you're somewhere in the middle of your draft and those top 2 running backs kind of hit, I would tell you to that these 2 guys, they're not as safe just because of the situations they're in, but they will provide you receiver 1 type numbers. So that there's a little risk with Cooper, as he is a little injury prone at the moment, and Hill with Tua. But other than that, you obviously can't go wrong with any of these tier 1 guys. Tier 2, you got Diggs, Lamb, St. Brown, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Adams. I will give my input after, but I have a little bit of input on these guys. Manfish, do you have any input on your tier 2 guys?
No, it's pretty solid. I don't think really anyone should be moved or switched here as well.
Yeah, Bear.
Yeah, I like all these guys in this tier. Yeah, I don't have any problem with any of these guys. This is actually a perfect tier 2. I like these guys.
Kari.
Mostly the same, and the only thing I would say is maybe a little homerism here, but I would say if Deebo gets back to the workload he had, I would put him up here just because having that same workload he had, he was a top 10 receiver for fantasy purposes.
Right on, yeah. So if you're in the position where you're able to get 2 of these tier 2 guys, I would advise you to make sure you're looking at the running backs that are available, and to make sure that you can systematically get one of those guys in round 3 at least that you kind of need as an RB1. But if you guys are receiver heavy like myself, if you're near the end of your picks, I would even consider 8th pick good for Stephon Diggs at least. But if you're trying to load up, this is a good tier to load up on, especially if it's tier 3 and you can load up on a second receiver in any of these tier 3s that we're about to talk about. That would also be good. Like I said before, receivers, you kind of want as many of these tier 3 guys, in my opinion, as possible before you move too far into the draft, because I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys to winning this year, is having some guys that can just massively give you points, as the NFL is kind of moving towards passing versus rushing. But yeah, I'm just going to re-say what everyone else has kind of said. You can't go wrong with tier 2. Let's move on to tier 3, where there's a lot of potential in some of these guys to be really, really good. And there's some potential in some of these guys that they will stay around where they're at. You got Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, and DK. Fish, do you have any opinions? Are you taking any of these guys? Are you not? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so my thought process is, when I'm drafting, I'm grabbing a tier 2 wide receiver and probably a tier 2 running back if that falls for me. And this tier 3 right here, there's some of these tier 3 guys that should be tier 2s easily. Like Jalen Waddle, 1,300 yards last season, he should be tier 2. And then some guy who's not even tier 2 or tier 3 that you mentioned, Scary Terry. Why is Scary Terry not tier 3? Because Sam Howell.
I think that's probably the only reason why, yeah.
Yeah, so for me personally, if Scary Terry's going to drop that low, I'm probably going to hold off and take another tier 3 running back here around this time, and then hold off for Scary Terry later on for another starter or a flex.
Good insight there, yeah. Bear?
Yeah, again, I agree with Manfish. I think some of these guys are tier 2. Like, I would put Waddle, Olave up in that echelon of receivers. I try to stay away from Keenan Allen because he's injury prone, and I don't like him usually fantasy wise when I draft him. DK Metcalf, I am also staying away with. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have Tyler Lockett. They added another running back with Kenneth Walker. That it's going to be a spread around offense. But yeah, like Manfish said, I usually get a running back here because I see Scary Terry and I see DJ Moore. Those are guys that I go and I reach for later in the draft because I think Scary Terry's always put up like fantastic numbers, and then obviously Moore's put up fantastic numbers with that quarterback play. And this it might be hometown bias, but I think DJ Moore is that next receiver, like an AJ Brown or Stephon Diggs, that takes that next step into that top tier echelon receiver.
Car, you got any thoughts on that?
I don't know if last year was a fluke or not, but if we're getting down here, I'm taking a chance on Christian Kirk. He's now the wide receiver 2 there, and that means he's not being covered by the wide receiver 1 or the quarterback 1. I think it's another big year for Christian Kirk, personally.
Yeah, well, let me rebuttal off of that. Calvin Ridley has not even been listed yet, bro. Like, what are these tiers? Calvin Ridley. Is he tier 4? 5? Oh my, he's wide receiver 1, is he not?
I'm pretty sure a lot of people are hype on Calvin Ridley right now.
Yeah, I think Calvin Ridley even should probably be up in this tier, especially if I was thinking T-Law is going to have an MVP run this year.
Yeah, so this tier 3 is probably round 2 and 3 type guys again. I liked the opinions that Keenan Allen and DK Metcalf were probably stay away guys. I probably agree in a fantasy standpoint. I do think they'll be productive players for their teams, but fantasy wise, there's other players I'm eyeing a little bit in round 4 or 5 of fantasy drafts that I'd rather have, that I would rather take. Garrett Wilson and Jalen Waddle and Olave even are guys I'm like really liking as my receiver 2s because I will have one of the tier 1 or 2 guys as my receiver 1s if I don't take a running back, obviously. But I would, in my scenario, I would like one of these tier 3 guys as my receiver 2. I'm not mad at all if it's Garrett Wilson or Waddle as my number 1s, though. I will say that. T. Higgins and Devonta Smith are okay in my book as well. I don't think I skipped anyone. Yeah, I didn't. So, tier 4, there's a ton of names. I'll fly through them for Fish. You got Cooper, Ridley, Samuel, Godwin, Hopkins, Judy, Moore, McLaurin, London, Deontay Johnson, and Watson from Green Bay. I will put this out there. This is the type of tier I'm probably not going to draft a lot of my guys out of unless I went running back first. Because there's other guys a little later in tier 5 that I probably see myself taking a receiver 3. There is 2 names in tier 4 I will say that I probably take flex, but other than that, I do want to move on to Fish before I keep going.
Yeah, there's really not much. There's not really much to say here. I don't think D-Hop with the quarterback play is going to be anything special. I mean, Calvin Ridley obviously should be up. But besides that, like, could you list them again one more time?
Cooper, Ridley, Samuel, Godwin, Hopkins, Judy, Moore, McLaurin, London, Johnson, and Watson.
Yeah, so Scary Terry, obviously I have my opinion about him. But, I mean, yeah, these are good backup guys, good bench players for your bye week, and I can't really go wrong with it even for, a bench standpoint.
Wow, bench. Okay, interesting. Bear, what do you think?
Yeah, if I go running back heavy, because I like to stay balanced, but if I do go running back heavy, and I'm looking at one of these guys as my receiver 2 or my flex, like I'm looking at the same guys. I'm looking at McLaurin. I'm looking at DJ Moore. I like Amari Cooper. I like the way he plays and his route running ability. Calvin Ridley is another guy I look at. I look in the same light as I do DJ Moore. I like to take either one of those if they're available. I tend to stay away from Jerry Jeudy not a believer of Russell Wilson, and he's never had a 1,000-yard year, so I'm not trusting that fantasy-wise at all. Deebo Samuel, health-wise, and I think Ayuk takes that receiver one responsibility and workload, so I'd personally stay away from Deebo. And I think that's about it. Maybe London, I would take a swing at if you have that extra slot.
All right. And then, Kari, any thoughts?
For me, I feel like the best one in this tier is either Calvin Ridley or Drake London. I think Drake London has a really high ceiling. If Desmond Ridder is that guy there indeed, which feels like he might be, I could see Drake London being actually really good for fantasy.
Yes, absolutely. So, and where I was getting to with my point, I consider this tier half I'm definitely receiver 2, or half could be receiver 2, but extremely volatile. And what I mean by this is, if you just take a look at the first few guys, I definitely consider them high receiver 2s if you can get your hands on them. But these lower tier 4 guys are all extremely volatile just because of their situations. Take them at your risk. I probably will. So if you're a risky player, don't be shy of Terry. Don't be shy of London. Don't be shy of Johnson or Watson. Because if their quarterbacks do well, they will do well. Because, in my opinion, they are what's going to lead that receiving corps. I definitely agree with the Judy and Hopkins. I'm not too certain on them. You would think DeAndre Hopkins will be good because he's DeAndre Hopkins, although I am extremely against anyone other than Derrick Henry on the Titans right now in fantasy. So take those two at your risk. DJ Moore, I definitely like him. He's one of my favorite receivers. It just depends if Fields is going to start passing the ball more, which I would assume he will this season, so keep your eye on Moore. But yeah, you can and can't go wrong with tier 4. It really depends what kind of draft you're doing, and it depends what you are doing. If you're receiver heavy like myself, you probably won't get many of these guys because you already have your receivers. But if you're going running back the first 2, you probably will get a handful of these guys, and it's not bad. For the sake of time, I just want to combine the rest of the receivers. Kind of just throw in for analysis players you kind of like that you want to see starting. It could be your flex. Fish, do you have any guys we haven't really talked about that you would kind of consider?
Yeah, I don't think Brandon Ayuk got brought up, so I think he should be a guy you might want to take a look at. I think he becomes the wide receiver 1 over there in San Francisco. Other than that, there's no one really off the top of my head I can think about.
That's good. That's all good. Bear.
Yeah, I was also going to mention Brandon Ayuk. Like I said earlier, I feel like he might take that receiver 1 responsibility. Another receiver that could have a good year, in my opinion, is Juju Smith-Schuster. Receiver 1 there. I feel like he's capable of getting you at least somewhat decent value. Another guy that I do feel like is Michael Thomas. If he can stay healthy, I believe in him every year. He always gets hurt, but when he's healthy, he's that guy. So even if he does get hurt, I put him on IR stash.
Okay. We got Kari. Any last thoughts on receivers?
A guy I would be looking at later on would probably be someone like Alan Lazard. Second guy there, has history with Rodgers. Really wasn't terrible other than the injuries in Green Bay.
All right. Street Striker, proud of you, Fo. Thanks, Zach. You're so nice. I guess to just combine all my thoughts into 2, I will say I'm going to probably give my biggest secret for my drafts to you guys out here. I insanely like the rookie receiver class, and I think there is a good chance a lot of them do really well. I think you can see like 5 of them on my screen at the moment, but Addison, JSN, and Quentin Johnson are probably my top threes. There's other ones that I would even consider in my top threes, but we'd have to scroll down a little bit. But in retrospect to rookie receivers, I think the last year guys are also very, very nice, like Jahan Dotson and George Pickens. So if you're kind of in the round 9 and later, I highly advise you guys take a look at these rookie receivers. I might be stashing as many as possible, but you don't want to go as crazy as me because there's definitely other receivers out there. But definitely take a look at these rookie receivers. We can't ignore how good rookie receivers have started becoming, and I think there's a good chance at least 2 of them do really, really well this season. So that's a very high risk, high reward take, but if you're in a good, safe spot with receivers, I highly recommend taking one of those rookie receivers. Are there any other last second thoughts on receivers? Because I know receivers are insanely volatile, or not volatile, they're very high in fantasy. So, any other thoughts?
Yeah, George Pickens. I'm starting to believe in the Steelers, dude, and I think he might be worth a look at.
I feel like Traylon Burks is my other guy that I like personally.
Ooh, I do like him. Only if those Titans are actually moving that ball. That's a good one, yeah. I like Traylon Burks last year. I actually kept him. I put 3 years on him in my keeper league, and I ended up dropping him because I needed space. But yeah, I was very excited for Traylon Burks. I'm excited to see him as one of those round 2 guys I was mentioning again. But or not round 2, but last year's guys. Let's move on to tight ends though, because I definitely want to wrap this up here. Tight ends, it's kind of tough. Depends what you're looking for at certain spots. This tier 1, it honestly should just be one guy because of just where players pick him at. But for the sake of this tier, we'll say the 3 names: Kelsey, Andrews, and Hawkinson. I will say my opinion right now because we probably all have the same opinion. Can't go wrong with any of those guys. And if you're in a certain spot to get Kelsey in round 1, I would not shy away from it. So, Fish, what are your thoughts on those 3?
I mean, yeah, Kelsey's obviously a top 10 pick. He's mostly falling like 6, 7, 5 in most mocks. Hawk, obviously, he had almost 1,000 yards last year. I mean, I don't know what's going to look like this year with addition of Jordan Addison. I have no idea. But he's still a good pick. Mark Andrews, you can't go wrong with Mark Andrews. He's very quarterback friendly, so also always a good pick.
Bear.
Yeah, I like all these guys. Personally, I don't draft Kelsey. I just don't. I usually wait and I like Mark Andrews.
And Kari.
I'm gonna stay out of this one.
Fair.
I'm staying out of this one.
So I kind of am on the side that I don't usually ever get these guys, I will be honest, because I usually am not in a position where I can take Kelsey. I would really have to be in a very interesting spot where I'm like sixth. Yeah, I was just about to say 6th. Where the right people have gone before Kelsey. That's when I would take Kelsey. Because other than that, I actually take my tight ends insanely late. I don't advise people to follow that, but if you are really good at knowing your football, there's always a tight end that you can take late in the draft. So I usually stay away from tier 1, even though these 3 are really good. If you're taking Mark Andrews and Hawkinson in rounds 2 and 3, it's just kind of rough, in my opinion, as you're leaving out valuable players as well. So I'm not going to say it's not the best picks, but you can't go wrong with Andrews or Hockenson. I'll just leave it at that. But tier 2, we got Waller, Kittle, Goddard, Pitts, Ingram, Freiermuth. My only comment before I move on is do not reach on these guys. And if you're by reach, I mean doing like round 2 picks for these guys. I would not. Some guys like to follow the train when they see Andrews and Hawk picked. I would stop the train and wait a minute. But
sorry,
Fish, go for it.
Yeah, could you repeat them again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Waller, Kittle, Goddard, Pitts, Ingram. God, I always mess that up. And Freiermuth.
Yeah, I mean, Kittle is like that guy. Like he might be tier 1. It just depends on quarterback play, obviously. Me personally, I think Brock Purdy is going to be him. So I think Kittle should be borderline, even maybe so tier 1. Other than that, Darren Waller, he's on the Giants now, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know about Daniel Jones. I mean, they have some receivers now. Like Hodgins is there. What's his name? Prince or Price? He came back off injury. So I don't know how that's going to work out, especially with Dan Jones just being your quarterback. And other than that, not really much I can say about the other 2 guys.
We got a
Don't reach for
Bear.
these guys really.
Bear, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I have usually Kittle for me is tier 1. Same with Waller, but both of them have deal with injuries every now and then, and obviously both of them are now a question for quarterback play. The guy I like here the most is I like Pat Freiermuth. I think his quarterback's progressed, his offense has progressed, everything about it's gotten better. I also like Dallas Goedert. I like Dallas Goedert. He's a safety blanket for Jalen Hurts. And this might be, again, biased, but I think Cole Kmet, the guy, Pat Freiermuth, or some of them aren't there. That's a guy I reach for sometimes because he had 7 touchdowns and 500, almost 600 yards receiving last year. So I think he's the next upcoming guy like Pat Freiermuth.
All right. So this tier 2 list, I'm not going to say I don't like any of them because I do like them all. I'm hoping Kyle Pitts doesn't keep the train where he kind of decreased after year 1. I don't see that happening. I think he'll get better this year. But overall, like I said previously, don't reach for these guys because you will get one of them in your draft if you wait a little bit. Do not keep the train rolling. I see it way too often where guys are taking 5 freaking tight ends rounds 2 and 3, and it's just not a good option in my opinion. That's one of the biggest errors I see happen. So I would wait. If those 3 first tier guys go, I even consider Kittle's okay if it's a round 3 or 4 guy, but if any of these other guys are kind of moving, I would probably stay away until round 5 at least. But that's me. Tiers 3 and 4 are kind of where I actually get my starter usually. I'm insanely big on year 2 tight ends if they had a good spot as a year 1. I won't give my tight end of the year credit just in case people want to draft them over me because I know some people will watch this. But I will say this. Any of these guys that were coming out year 2 could be big impactors because I have the theory that year 2 guys that played well year 1 are only going to get better. So I do want to move on to Fish with his thoughts on tier 3. I haven't said their names yet. So they are Njoku, Schultz, Higbee, holy shit, Ocon. I don't even know how to say the Titans' last name guy. Matt, Dolich, Everett, and Kincaid.
Yeah, I don't know what the whole thing with Kincaid is. I don't know why they drafted another tight end, but we'll see how that pans out. He's a rookie, so I'm going to stay away from that for obvious reasons. These guys aren't like, I don't know, they're not bad. Like, Cole Kmet, was he here?
Yeah, he's in this tier.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, see, Cole Kmet might be a good one here. Just because I don't know, Fields might be like a better off, like, you know, a tight end type of guy, you know, like Jared Goff is, like, so, you know, I don't know. I don't really know much about like fancy wise for these tight ends other than it is good backups maybe. Maybe that depends where you fall.
Yeah. Bear.
Yeah. Again, I like Cole Kmet, guy I always draft. I like Njoku. Higby, I'm not a fan of. I feel like Stafford's. I honestly like. I'm not even trying to be weird or anything, but I feel like it's going to happen if Stafford gets an injury. I like Greg Dulcich. I feel like he's honestly. I don't like the Broncos receiving core at all, so I feel like he can take over and be that safety blanket for Wilson. And I like Kincaid, but again, Kincaid has Dawson Knox there, so I would stay away from that personally.
Akari.
I think he's mute.
That's fine. So with tier 3, if you wait a very long time, kind of like I do, you probably end up with one of these type of tight ends. This is kind of where I get my tight ends from, which is, again, you probably shouldn't do that, but I like to wait a very long time. I actually have to admit I'm really high on the Cole Met train. I could probably see him being my tight end one on all my teams if it happens, but I also really like David Njoku. He's probably one of my favorite tight ends going into the season. So, again, this is kind of where I get my guys from. I wait a long time. It really depends where I'm at in my draft. If I get one of those tier 2 guys, because I do sometimes get one of those tier 2 guys. I had like Goddard on a decent amount of my teams, but tier 3, this is kind of where I start looking at my tight ends. I look very late. I used to be insanely big on the Dalton Schultz train, but I hate the fact that he got moved from Dallas to Houston. I loved Dallas for their tight ends, but yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with some of these guys. The Tennessee guy, Everett, Dulcich, can't go wrong with them. If you get them as a backup, that's a very good backup. But I don't shy away from them being starters if needed. But yeah, Kincaid and Knox, I have no idea what the hell they're going to do with that. I'm assuming Dawson Knox going to be the guy for at least a year, and then he's going to move on, and then it will be Kincaid. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but moving on from tier 3, I don't know. Is there any other tight ends that you would even consider, Fish? I'm gonna take that as a no. Bear, is there any other tight ends you would consider?
Yeah, I think there's.
You cut off me. I'm sorry.
Oh, Bear or Fish is here. Is there any other tight ends you'd want?
Yeah, sorry, I must have not heard you. I mean, now I don't. Now there's no one here that I can really think of. So, no.
That's fine.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys usually won't get drafted, or they're late anyways. But Bear, any thoughts?
I like Jawan Johnson. He's a touchdown machine.
Mm-hmm.
Look at him, and Michael Thomas can't stay healthy. I think he's that next guy. Kamara's suspended as well for 3 games, so he's going to be a guy that they look at a lot. And then the other guy that I like is not Mike Gesicki. I like Hunter Henry. He's also a guy who racks up a lot of touchdowns and yards. And for Mac Jones, he really loves his tight ends.
Yeah, he does.
So those are the 2 I look at, and I'm like, if they're there, I'll grab them as a backup, or I'll pick them up free agency if I need to.
Yes, this is kind of where Oh, what did you say?
I said, I guess there's a couple guys. That's me being biased once again for Detroit. If it's, say like one of them get hurt, like Brock Wright gets hurt, then I might pick up a Mitchell. Cause I that's a second-year tight end, and I think they're pretty solid tight ends. I'm not gonna lie, like they both are, him or Brock Wright. Even maybe Sam Laporte as a rookie, because we both know JG loves his tight ends as well. So,
for the record, he's a very diehard Lion. That was just a diehard Lion take right there. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I mean, was it though? Brock Wright had 3 touchdowns in one game against the Jets. So, like, if you give him the right week, dude, honestly, like, that's not bad.
Yeah. I guess if we're doing a little bit of bias, I would maybe consider Robert Tonyan, considering just a couple of years ago, I think he led tight ends in touchdowns, and he's a year off the ACL, and we're going to be using a lot of 2 tight end sets. So if you have an injury or two, maybe Robert Tonyan's a pickup you can like.
Right.
Did that end your? God damn! I just stuttered that word. Did you end your spot with your thought there, Fish? Jesus Christ!
Oh, I was mostly referring to, like, I'm not saying like injury on like the team. I was saying the injury like on Detroit's team. Like, say Brock Wright goes down, then maybe I'll pick up like a Mitchell, or say like they both go down, then definitely pick up one of them. Free agency, maybe. I mean, I don't know. That's just a thought.
No, I get it. So with these last tiers, because I look so far down and with the tight ends, I do have some opinions. Out of the tier 4 spot, there's only a handful I really like. I'm actually going to disagree with the Patriots just because of the Gesicki addition. I have no idea which one's going to be the better one, so I probably am going to stay away from that situation. Just like the Arizona one, I have no idea if it's McBride or Ertz. Most of these tier 4 guys I'm probably staying away from, except Juwan Johnson. I really liked that thought on him, and it's obviously true. He's a touchdown machine, but these tier 5 and 6 guys, I mean, I'm going to be honest, none of these tier 6 guys are promising except Jonu Smith and Robert Tonyan. I probably don't take any of these other guys, but tier 5 actually is a little interesting for me. Obviously, Taysom Hill's just a random, crazy tight end that you throw in when you need. Won't ever take that away from him. I really do like players like Austin Hooper, because I'm very high on the impression that rookie tight ends don't pop off immediately. So I could see Austin Hooper being relevant early. Isaiah Likely, they love the 2 tight ends there in Baltimore. If you need a random tight end one week, that's a nice one to scoop up off the free agency. And again, the guys I'm talking about are all free agency guys. I would not draft these guys. Just keep your eyes on them. Jake Ferguson is a guy I like with Dallas. I think he's a really good fit. And he had a decent showing his first year, so year 2 could be really good for him as he's most likely the starter because you got Shoemaker there. And Logan Thomas and Woods are both kind of I would keep my eyes on guys. So, I mean, there's some depth guys there for tight ends that if you do need them in weeks, keep your eyes on those guys. But if you're crazy enough like me to draft 2 tight ends, all those guys are probably good tight end 2s to have on your draft. But that was a lot of talking. I'm not going to go over the kickers and defense. I'm sorry if you actually came on this podcast to talk about them. But, yeah, I mean, for the sake of fantasy football, I guess my last regards are it's really dependent on where you're at. If you're a running back heavy guy, you probably don't want the first or second pick this season. You probably want somewhere in the middle. And you probably will do really good with your draft if you're somewhere in the middle and you're running back heavy. If you're receiver heavy, if you're at the front or end, you're probably going to do well. If you're reverse and you're trying to do that type of scheme, it's possible you reach, unless you do crazy things like Travis Kelce. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting season just because of how the flip of running backs and receivers have kind of happened last year. I tried the 0 running back strategy, and it worked insanely well, surprisingly. I've never, ever took receivers first round, and I did really good. So if you're interested in trying the running back strategy in your fantasy leagues where you just don't take a running back to round 4, I suggest you at least try it once because you'd be surprised.
Dude, I did. Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in.
I was going to say you anyway.
Yeah, I did that last year in my league personally, and all my leagues. I was in 3 leagues last year, and every single league I took Brees Hall and Brian Robinson, and they both one got shot and one tore an ACL, right?
Oh fuck, that's true.
So I was down bad. I thought I was done for. I thought the season was over. No, dude, I picked up some random guys off free agency here and there, drop them here and there, and I took second in all 3 of my leagues last year. I went to the championship in all 3. So it's kind of crazy how well it actually panned out.
And I'm not going against running backs first round. I'm just saying it's a strategy that's kind of becoming relevant. If you're not on the train and you're still kind of, I'm going to go running back, don't force it if you're not in a good spot. That's all I'm saying. Because I do agree, you can still take McCaffrey and Eckler in the first round and win your leagues. I'm just saying don't force the running backs if it's not in your favor. Bear, do you have any overall insight on what you like to look at for fantasy?
Yeah, I'm on the same train as you guys. I've been on it for a while. It's the same thing last year. I drafted Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker. So I'm more receiver heavy. I go receiver, and I usually reach for a tight end because I don't like having available points go off the board because there's only a certain amount of tight ends that actually are pretty decent and get you good points instead of just being null or void at that spot. So if there's receivers that aren't there that aren't good, I usually get a Mark Andrews. I go ahead and get a TJ Hawkinson, one of the top two of the echelon of tier 1. But yeah, I don't force running backs because there's more injuries there. You see it every year. Running backs take more of a workload. They get hurt. You see backups come in, and usually they do fine. They don't even, I've seen guys like the Bears last year come in, Herbert 100 yards in the 2 games he came in. You're going to be fine and pick up a running back off the waiver wire pretty well. So.
All right. So yeah, next week we'll do this again next Monday. I think what we're gonna go over is some of my drafts because I do have 2 of my drafts this weekend. I do have a redraft league and I do have my keeper contract league. I will explain what that league is to you guys if you're interested, but I'll do that next week, and we'll probably start looking up the schedules going forward for the week 1s as college football will have started and the NFL will be getting closer to starting. Definitely want to.
Sorry.
No, what were you gonna say?
I was saying I'd probably give my final predictions for Lions Chiefs game that next podcast as well. If you want to hop in on that.
Sure. Yeah. We can definitely squeeze that in probably at the start or something. But yeah, next week probably we'll go over my 2 drafts, the week 1 scenarios, and yeah, the Lions and Chiefs. As that'll probably be a segment we'll do weekly where we talk the Lions as we are all both Lion diehards. So,
yeah.
And one guy in here is probably the opposite. So he, yeah.
I have no bearing on either side. I don't care about either team.
It's all right. Well, if you guys are here on the panel, we could obviously always talk about what do you think your teams are going to do. And we might touch up on it.
You guys doing picks next Monday too? You're picking teams who's going to win, and the favorites and betting favorites and stuff?
Yeah, I'll probably touch on bets. It really depends how much time I can make for the podcast. But I'm probably going to throw in some betting next week as we are starting to get to the point where, the make your bets before the season start type bets. And so, yeah, we'll probably be touching that a little bit. But that basically ends our show. I like to leave a little bit of room for random final thoughts. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up before we head out of here? About anything. It could be college football. It could be football, news.
Lions are winning the division. Fuck the Bears.
All right, I see how it is. Okay.
We don't have a lot of time.
Did I cut out?
No, we all heard you.
Yeah, but I will be definitely paying attention to LSU, Clemson. I'm excited for both of my college teams to see what they can do. They're both top 10 in the AP polls. I don't necessarily like the AP polls rankings as of right now. I feel like there's a couple of high and off of hype, but yeah.
Wow.
I also like to say Geno Smith is a one hit wonder. He's gonna suck. Do not draft him or any receivers on that team.
I agree. Seahawks are going 17.
the Baltimore Ravens suck ass. Also, just want to point out Lamar's a fraud and injury prone.
W take.
I'm looking at this 53-man roster projection, and guess what receiver is getting eyed on as one of the top six fish?
Antonio Green.
He is in it,
Is
but
it Drummond?
yeah, Dylan is one of the 6.
Over Chase Cota?
Yeah, they're saying that, or this person is thinking that Coda might get cut.
Wow.
Oh,
Must like a
also,
block or
one last thing. I am excited for cut day. That's coming very, very soon, in about a week.
Yeah,
so I'm
cut day is very fun.
So
I heard they're.
I was just gonna say Bears
Sorry,
are
I
first
didn't
on
mean
waiver wire, so that's why I'm excited. We get
Right.
first pick and choosings of who we get, and there's gonna be names like Corey Davis, Sterling Shepard.
Oh yes.
I heard they're doing it different this year. I seen an article on Facebook. I didn't click on it or read it, but it said cut day is different this year in NFL. Click here to figure out what.
It's one big cut. There's no cut down from 90 something till 70.
Mm-hmm.
It's just straight up 90 something to 53.
What the fuck? So was that next week?
Yeah, 28, 29 is cut day. They have 1 week to figure out who they want and who they don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Insane.
It's different now.
I mean, it basically plays out the same because you still get 3 weeks to see if your one guy you're holding for 3 weeks is good enough to make the roster. Because we all know that there are some people that are just there to fill a roster and not you actually think they're going to make your 53-man.
Yeah, you got like camp bodies and stuff. The guys are just there for bodies.
Nate Sudfeld's getting cut.
Nick
Yeah,
sucks
kid,
for the
dude,
starting. I don't know what you're talking about.
Bro, sorry, I know you keep talking about the Lions here, but I seen a post saying that they plan on putting Hendon Hooker in an active 53, not IR.
Oh, that would be crazy.
Yeah, that's.
I actually
I was like,
I was gonna ask Akari, how do you feel about we were talking about this earlier. How do you feel about the Nick Bosa situation? Because I saw a report that he might hold out until week 1 and further until he gets a contract, and we're like 2 weeks away.
I'm not worried.
I was very confident, not worried.
He'll be signed.
Also, I just want to point out that Terry McLaurin just got hurt.
Who?
who? Terry.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, guys, I have a bet on the Ravens. We gotta look at it real quick.
But that they're going to lose. Their streak is going to be snapped.
No, first half. They're winning.
They won the first half, I'm pretty sure.
Well, the Commanders have the ball, and there's 40 seconds left. So we need to go watch this game. So we're going to end this podcast because I need to watch the ending of this, or else I will lose money. So thank you guys for coming. Yeah, Fish will most likely be back here. We could see some surprise guests again. But, yeah, you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back next Monday.
Later,
Adios.
guys. See you Monday.